Hello all you minties, this is the Uncanny Omar from Near Mint Condition, and today join me as I take an advanced look at the Marvel Masters of Suspense Stan Lee and Steve Ditko Omnibus Volume 2, so please stay tuned. As always, before I take a look at the book, I'd like to say a huge thank you to David Gabriel and the folks at Marvel for sending us an advance copy of the book. This particular volume is due out in the direct market on February 28th. And of course, the direct market being comic book stores and places like cheap graphic novels. I wanted to do a quick little comparison to Volume 1, just taking a look at the covers and then the spines and the back. Volume 1 came out last year. It was in August of 2019. Here's what those spines are going to look like when they are sitting in your bookshelf. You gotta love matching spine. You never know these days. Here's the back of the book. They both retail for $100 each. And I have to point out these very sad words. Every last Lee Ditko epic. Because I'll talk a little bit about why it took me so long to do this overview. But before I do that, let's look at it under the dust jacket. Both of these. Get a nice Ditko image and what the spines look like together without the dust jacket. Honestly surprised that they didn't give a red dust jacket to Volume 2. So, much like Volume 1, Volume 2 has an image going across the board. Now let's get this opened. And it's got this purple end pages, much like Volume 1. Masters of Suspense, Stan Lee and Steve Ditko. There are other credits in here, but let's look at these really quick. They're kind of small credits, but they're here. You have Corey Seldmeyer, and you know when Corey works on a book, you're going to get the top of the crop when it comes to restoration. Jay Bowen, who did the logo design, Michael Kelleher, and the illustrations, Laurie Smith, Tom Mullen, Wesley Wong, My Artist Company, and Monster Solutions, and of course David Gabriel. And you'll see here, again, this is a labor of love. Here are the credits. It's a little hard to see, so I'm gonna zoom in a little bit. Because of the glow on the lettering, it's a little hard to see the smaller lettering. So you have the inker on one of the books, but mainly it is Steve Ditko. Larry Lieber does help out on Tales of Suspense. And here's the credit to all the letterers in the book. The table of contents, and up here at the very top, again, it's a little hard to see, but at the very top it explains how this is collected in the order that the stories were submitted. And the way they're able to tell that is because each of the stories have a beginning, and I'll show you here in a second after I talk about this. But here's an introduction by the wonderful artist P. Craig Russell. And this is what I was talking about by the number when it was submitted. So for example, this is V391 for the story right here, Why Won't They Believe Me? And then V392 and so on from here on. So this particular volume collects the tail end of the Stan Lee and Steve Ditko collaboration. Let's talk about what it collects in here. So we have Journey into Mystery 74 to 96, Strange Tales 92 to 109, 112 and 113, Tales to Astonish 27 to 48, Tales of Suspense 25 through 44 and 46, Amazing Adult Fantasy 7 through 14, and Amazing Fantasy number 15 when it was renamed. Now that's a whole lot of books, right? But it's just material from all those comics, because a lot of these, you know what, 98% of these are 5-page stories. Some are 3 pages, some are 13 pages, but for the most part these are little 5-page stories, and I'll highlight a couple of them here in a second. So this particular volume has 796 pages, and the first volume had 788 pages, so it's a little bigger, just a little bit. So this is a collection of sci-fi, fantasy, there's monster tales, there's tales of morals, there's time travel, there are, oh my goodness, there's all kinds of stuff in here. Zoos, Martians coming to attack, and what I mean in tales of morals, it kind of reminds me of all those Twilight Zone and Outer Limits episodes that I love so much growing up that I'm introducing my oldest daughter to, and we stay up watching these things when way past her bedtime. But let me show you a couple of examples, and then we'll talk about the one that I have to talk about because I'm an X-Man guy. So we're going to talk about Inside the Fallout Shelter. This is a 5-page story. It's about a guy that collects all these cans because he's building his own shelter because he's afraid of a nuclear blast killing him. And he's very selfish, and when he hears the sirens go off, he locks himself into his metal bunker. His neighbors are like, hey, wait a second. And they're trying to tell him something, and he's like, no, get away. I don't have enough food for everybody. But indeed he does. He has enough food for months. However, he forgot that to pack a can opener, and it was just a trial siren. It wasn't even the real thing of a bombing. That's what his neighbors were trying to tell him, and he's locked down there. There's no way to open it for another month, and hopefully he can survive without food for a month. And that is the moral of that story. It's things like that. But I love that stuff. It reminds me of all those Twilight Zone and, like I said, Outer Limit episodes. Here's another one of my favorite 5-page stories that originally was published in Journey into Mystery 83 in August of 1962. Again, the number down here to tell them where to put this in order. But I wanted to mention this, that each one of these little stories is preceded by a splash page like this. It's almost like a cover for the comic book. And then you get 4 pages. So this one's about a lion just chilling in Africa. There's a nuclear blast, and then he has the power to talk or to think. Not only that, but to project his thoughts onto his animal friends. And he was like, I've had enough of this human garbage. Let's go and take them all out. There's more of us than there are of them. He plans it all out. However, the radiation that made him have the ability to think and talk to his animal friends kind of starts dying down, and he loses his powers, and he's just a regular lion by the end of the story. And all the animals are like, hey, what were we doing? And they all go away. That's pretty much it. I love stories like this. And I'm really downplaying it. I'm just highlighting 2 stories. Stories of Zeus and the little gypsy tea room. Actually, this is one of the few stories that's only 3 pages long. So it's just that and those 2 pages. Oh, okay, so let's talk about this, because Corey loves putting in the letters. And I say Corey because that's who I usually attach the letters to with all my Uncanny X-Men that he's done a restoration on. But I love when they put letters in here because it reminds me when I was a kid and looking at the letters. I would love reading the letters from fans. And I don't know if anybody else did this, but did you all ever want to write people back here a letter from like an old comic book to see if they still read comic books? I remember as a kid I had like 60s and 70s comics, and I was like, oh man, this guy's in California. I wonder if he still reads comics. Maybe I just needed a pen pal. Maybe I just needed a friend. That's kind of sad. Forget that. Forget I said any of that. I was just hypothetically speaking. So here's Beware of the Giants, one of my other favorite stories. But as an X-Men guy, I feel the need that I need to talk about The Man in the Sky. A story originally published in 1962, so it predates the X-Men. And one can argue where the mutants even began, right? Did they begin in Tales of Suspense number 6 with that Mutants and Me storyline? Or did they begin with Namor or Journey into Mystery 52? But this is the story that was originally published in 1962. And it's one of the few times that the word mutant was used to describe somebody. And it's the story of this character right here, Tad Carter. It's a 5-page story about a kid that is able to read thoughts and fly and move objects. And eventually at the end, he is contacted by another being who summons him to go and live in a place where others like him with this mutant ability live. Now, rumor for the longest time, like in the 80s, was like, oh, that's Professor Xavier's first appearance. Later on, what was it? X-Men The Hidden Years by John Byrne. He was able to bring back Tad Carter and what were they called? The Promise, I think, and this guy turned out to be the Messenger. But anyway, I've always thought that was pretty neat, and I love to see this character appear, especially now in the island of Krakoa, with all the mutants living. But as an X-Men guy, I felt like I needed to talk about that. And I'm hopefully, as I'm flipping through here, you are appreciating, because I know it's a video and sometimes it's difficult to, the restoration process that went into this. It is wonderful. Sometimes I just sit here and look at this and it looks like it just came out of the printers. It's insane. I don't know, it's weird because you have this nice thick glossy paper. And it's not even glossy, it's a little semi-glossy. But I can't imagine what this looked like on actual newsletter paper or the paper they were using back then in comics. I mean, the colors in this look amazing. So the reason it took me so long to do this overview is because I felt the selfish need to read every one of these stories. Because to me, these stories, they're 5 pages, so they're the perfect like page count for what I like to call a palate cleanser when reading big, thick, long stories in comic books. Or if I need a break from mutants, or if I need a break from Avengers, whatever it is that I've been reading, that I'm like, okay, I need a break. This is the kind of stuff that I read. You know, also manga, and then sometimes I get burned out just reading it so much. So I've been reading a lot lately. So for the last month, this is what I've been reading and loved it because, like I said, fan of the Twilight Zone, fan of Outer Limits, little short 5-page stories that I could just sit down and read. And it's addictive because I would sit down and read, okay, I'm going to read like 3 today just to kind of get a break, and end up reading like 20. And I know that's not a lot, but still, let's look in the back here. So we have original artwork, so amazing. It's from Tales to Astonish. Where it was originally printed is up at the top. It's a little hard to see, but what matters is that this is the original artwork with the lettering where it's whited out to redo some of the text. I can't imagine owning a piece of this. This is so cool. And then, of course, the Amazing Fantasy Omnibus cover art for the variant. And let's look at the binding really quick. You could probably tell it was sewn binding, and there's that eye. It's a little smaller than Volume 1, but still gets the job done, so you could have no gutter loss. Not that you really needed to worry, because they're broken up as panels, and there's really not any splash pages. Now, if you're interested in the book, you can buy it from cheapgraphicnovels.com, your online home for brand new graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off the cover price. Cheap Graphic Novels prides itself on packaging your books so they arrive safely and in excellent condition, as well as prompt and helpful service. And check out their bargain bin for even greater deals up to 90% off cover price. And for you minties, Cheap Graphic Novels is running a special promotion. If you're a first-time customer, let them know you were referred by Near Mint Condition at the checkout, and you'll receive a credit for free shipping on your next order. Now, this is only for U.S. customers. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discounts, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. Now, that was the contents of the book and the binding, as well as the page count. Let me know in the comments down below if you are picking this up, if you've picked up the first one. I was taken by surprise by both of these books, and they ended up being some of my favorite books that I own now. I love the restoration process. I love the minute details that they were able to touch up. It's a wonderful collection. So let me know in those comments down below if this is something up your alley. Please don't forget to hit that like, subscribe button if you haven't subscribed yet, and the notifications button to let you know when our videos are going live. We can be found on Patreon and on Redbubble, and all of that information is in the description down below. That is a cool way to support the channel if you can do so. This was the Uncanny Omar, and remember, if it's classy and cool, it must be near mint.